Have you ever wondered what your bank account balance could look like if you had actually paid attention to some financial advice given to you in your late 20s? Or maybe more than me, read up on it and were interested in finances so that you could set yourself up for later life? Well, I definitely have. And now that I'm nearly in my 50s, I wish I had paid attention way earlier than I started to. Hi, my name is Beck and I make videos about my life as a nearly 50-year-old single woman living in Australia and living her best life. Quite a few of my friends have older parents to look after. They are in the midst of organizing aged care, nurses, doctors, who can look after them if they are not able to because they are still working full time. And also, like me, most of them are childless, so we do not have any other support when we get old. And hence this video came up because I am one of those nearly 50-year-olds that lived a great life. I traveled a lot, I did a lot of things, but I also did spend quite a bit of money when I maybe shouldn't have, and I really wasn't interested in finances. Not only is budgeting and saving not the social norm at the moment, I find. It's usually looked at quite poorly in my experience. I remember being in my 30s, having lots of friends around here, and there were a couple that were really frugal and were using their money wisely, I would say now. But when I was 30, I just thought they're tight and they wouldn't, go out when we all did, or they wouldn't buy other people a drink. They would count their money and say, no, sorry, I can't afford to do this month. I always thought that's pretty silly and they're missing out. But looking back now and seeing where they're at compared to me shows me that they were actually the smart ones. So yeah, now looking back, I actually realized they were the smart ones and are sitting pretty by now. So counting money when you're younger and making sure you know where it's going is the way to go. Over the last couple of years, I've started to read up a lot more on financial advice and have come up with a way for myself to try and build myself some systems for old age and have a bit of a security net if I will ever need it. But yes, a lot of that I wish I had known in my 20s. And if I would have started in my 20s or even in my 30s, my bank account balance or my superannuation balance, which is our retirement fund here in Australia, would look a lot different than it does at the moment. So the first thing I wish I had known in my 20s is make a budget. That way you always know where your money is going and how much money you have to potentially save. Believe you me, it is pretty obvious, I know, but if you're like me and you're not into finances and you really can't be bothered paying that much attention to where your money really is going, and it's enough for you to know how much money comes in and that the money will come in again at the next pay date, this is very important. I always worked, I always was able to pay my bills, and I was always able to do holidays, go out, see friends, etc. But until last year, and that's quite embarrassing by nearly being 50, I could not really tell you where my money was going. Like, was I spending it on groceries? Was I spending it on shoes? Or was I spending it on going out with friends? All I knew was at the end of the month, I would usually end up in the red using an overdraft or the credit card and then just pay it all off by the time I got paid again. So yes, make a budget so you know how much money you have and you know where your money is going. That way you can set yourself up. Number 2 is riding right on the back of number 1, and it's avoid unnecessary debt and keep an eye on your credit cards. Personally, I only got my first credit card in my 30s when I moved to Australia, and I don't think it was a great thing to have. But on the other hand, it's social norm at the moment to have a credit card, to have credit card debt, to have other debt, pay as you go, afterpay, you name it. Everybody is using it. So it's normal. You don't have the money, you can get the stuff anyway. And I totally fell into that trap for many, many years and still am struggling a little bit with it here and there, that if I see something I want, I'll get it and then I regret it. So number 1 by now helps me to stop doing that. Hence, I set my budget, I know where my money is going, and by writing down every single item I buy or every single dollar I spend, it stops me from using my credit card and making unnecessary purchases. But yes, I wish I would have known that in my 20s and 30s, that saving all that money that I've spent for really only stuff that I'm not using anymore and that I really didn't need, I would have so much money in my bank account and in my savings at the moment that I'd be laughing. So number 3 is start investing early and make the compound interest work for you. So I guess if I wouldn't have spent all my money in number 1 and number 2 of this video, and would have avoided unnecessary debt and didn't use my credit card all the time for things I really didn't need, I could have invested my money early on, and by now the dollars I saved would have made me maybe $100,000 in compound interest. I'm not quite sure how much it would have made me, but it would have been quite a bit. I've started reading a few financial books like the Barefoot Investor here in Australia, Warren Buffett on YouTube, and other YouTube channels that have financial advice and basically do investing and financial advice for dummies. So by now I've got a pretty good idea what is possible. Unfortunately, I'm a little bit late to the game. So yes, I wish I would have known that earlier and not wasted so much money and didn't make it work for me. Saying that, there are still ways I can make compound interest work for me. Here in Australia, we have something called superannuation, and my employer pays 11.5% of my salary into superannuation every month, and I can top it up with my own contributions each year. And by doing that, my money is invested in the stock market, in index funds, and hopefully, if nothing goes wrong, I will be able to grow quite a bit of a nest egg in that by the time I retire and yes, have the funds to keep living a joyful and happy life. And lastly, create an emergency fund to cover unexpected expenses or just create some financial freedom, really. So for example, I don't have an emergency fund. I've got some savings, but I haven't really gotten to the amount that I want to be at to feel comfortable. Financial advisors do say, try and save up about 3 to 5 months of your monthly salary in your emergency fund, and that will cover things that you didn't see coming. For example, I need a shoulder operation this year. It'll cost me around $6,000 after health insurance. And if I had the money in the bank, I would just happily do it and could have done it last year. But because I didn't, I had to wait to have the operation this year because I needed to save up for it. So once that is done, I'm determined to save up that money and have it sitting there that if anything else happens, like my car breaks down, something else happens in the medical world, my parents might need help, whatever else comes my way, oh, I've got a house, who knows what's going to happen here. Whatever else comes my way, I can cover it and don't have to stress about it, which will give me a much better night's sleep. So yes, if you're someone watching this video and you are in your 20s or 30s, hopefully this will give you some good advice and you might consider implementing some of those points that I mentioned before. If you're at my age, nearly in your 50s or even older, in your third stage of life, don't give up. There is still ways for us to better ourselves and set ourselves up for retirement. Even as solo women without children, we can do it. We just have to think about it a bit harder and be a little bit more frugal. We can still enjoy life and have some fun while doing it. See you next time.